Welcome to A Word with the girls. I'm Molly, here with Emily today. Just the two of us.
Just the two of us. Ooh.
Nice. Yeah, Miss Abby is missing this evening due to some illness, so we're thinking of her. And also super impressed by her because she was like deathly ill today and still had to be a mom and take care of a baby and two children.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Shout
crazy.
out to all the moms who do it all.
Truly.
Yeah.
Truly remarkable. Anyways, yeah, I'm here with Emily, and yeah, this is just a reminder to go follow us on Instagram at A Word with the Girls. Also, you can subscribe to our podcast on Spotify. You can also find us on YouTube. You can subscribe there, and we would love to hear from you. So if you have a question or even a word that you would like us to discuss, make sure you comment on the Spotify, on our Instagram, or on YouTube, and you might be featured in a future episode. So yeah, let's catch up a little bit before we dive in. How you doing?
Doing good. Yeah. I've had a weekend of just busy, like super busy. So I'm really trying to catch up on rest. The school year is ending soon. And so I think I've got maybe like a week and a half worth of subbing left, and then I'll get a break, just like you, which I'm sure you are anticipating as well.
Very much. Yes. It's hard. It's been hard coming back from Thanksgiving. It feels like every day holds some new interesting challenge. It's hard when the kids, the adults, nobody's doing great. So, yeah, it's just been tough. And tough to like muster up a positive attitude in the midst of all of it, I guess, because I'm tired. So then my capacity is compromised. And so that just makes it hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to winter break for sure.
Yeah. I always wonder going into the classrooms and stuff when I see like behaviors or people acting out. And I feel like the holidays sometimes are really hard for people, maybe especially kids who don't really know how to like manage their own emotions and even adults for that matter. And so I often try to remind myself like there's something must be going on in their life for the reason why they're acting this way. Sometimes they're just, pills, but I try to have that extra bit of grace. So yeah, who knows? I know the holidays aren't always easy for everybody. So we see you,
For sure.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, I think that's a really helpful mindset to have with behavior. I think it's hard too because the holidays, like schools kind of go overboard a little bit, if you ask me.
Oh. With like all the like
Um,
every day is like reindeer day and snowman
yes.
day, and it's just overstimulating,
It's
overbooked.
it's a lot. Like it's a lot of change, it's a lot of different stuff. Like kids really thrive on routine and knowing what to expect. And they like fun things, but fun things kind of dysregulate them a little bit.
Hmm.
And so when you do 9 days of fun things, you're kind of asking for some behaviors for sure.
Totally.
So, anyways, that's just the psychologist
Mm.
having an opinion from afar. I don't really get to be a part of those decisions. And I'm also between three schools, so then that gives me an excuse to not really participate in spirit days, but it's just been really interesting to talk to fellow educators about talk to and sometimes educate about, like who are you leaving out when you make decisions like this?
Yeah.
Because not every kid's family can afford to go out and buy something for, you know,
Mhm.
reindeer day or crazy sock day or whatever, like it costs money, and some kids, we've talked about this before, don't celebrate holidays, and some kids don't celebrate Christmas.
Right.
So, yeah, I think my schooling in grad school had me do a lot of work around the idea of like privilege and marginalization, and it just like totally shaped the way I see the world. And a lot of times I'm pushing back on stuff, which I'm sure is like really annoying. But it just, especially in school world,
Yeah.
I think we got to make decisions that really work to include everybody. And that's not always the case.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
anyways,
I actually had like an experience like that last week. I was subbing for a Spanish class, and we were going to be watching this movie called Las Posadas, which is the like way that people in Mexico celebrate Christmas, but it ends up spanning like from December all the way to February. And so it's a little bit more of like a cultural history, but there's still like they talk about Jesus and Mary and Joseph. And one student was like, I don't feel comfortable participating in this. And I was like,
mm,
I feel like I need to honor your request, even though like this is a homework assignment and you have to fill something out. I was like, "What do you do in that situation?"
mm,
And so I said, "Okay, like you don't have to." I don't know. I made an executive decision just based off of trying to respect somebody, and
mhm.
I don't know. It's just it's. I feel like there's just so many gray areas, and if somebody truly doesn't feel comfortable, then is that fair to force them? I don't know. So I hope the teacher was okay with me telling the girl that it was okay. So
Wow. Yeah.
yeah. Even though in my head I was like, just treat it like history. Like I learn about things that may not be
Mhm.
Jewish or may not be fill in the blank, but it's cultural, but I wasn't gonna fight it. So
Well, and you never know what the reason is behind it. Similar to like what you just said with behavior, like maybe something's going on at home, like maybe there's something in her story that does make that kind of content really painful. So,
yeah.
and who knows how powerful it was for you to listen to her
Hmm.
and say, I hear you. And yeah,
Hmm.
you can opt out.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh. Yeah, the struggles of, you know, balancing being respectful and honoring people's requests to sometimes we gotta do hard things that we don't always enjoy. So I don't know. I don't know how you
Right.
find that balance.
Well, I think there's always an alternative. So even in like the holiday conversation, kids who can't or don't celebrate holidays based on their religion, well, you don't have to do a Christmas tree activity. You can do a snowflake activity. You can do
Hmm.
a winter activity. You can do a snowman like it's like not hard, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
And I think that is an area that always trips people up, but then you realize, okay, no, it's not that hard to pivot
Right.
a little bit,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, I did request that she did the thing on the back, which was like a stocking and it was like colored by numbers, but it was in Spanish. So like azul, you color blue or whatever. And
Mhm. Mhm.
she didn't do it. So I was like, well, I tried. You know, like
Mhm.
maybe I won't make you do one thing, but maybe do another. But there was no flexibility there. But I was like, again, this is
Mhm.
not my thing. So
Which is really hard as a substitute.
I
Yeah.
know. I'm like, I'm not given a handbook and I'm going to very different schools a lot. And so every school has kind of like a different vibe. And so I'm not pushing the bill because I don't really know how these schools kind of run.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Wow.
So it's just been interesting and just trying to like go with like what I think is right. And I think that that's what we all can do, you know,
Mhm.
and just love the people we come across. Well,
For sure.
so that's what's going on.
Okay.
Are you watching anything fun and exciting? I feel like we both watch some of the similar shows.
Yeah. So let's see. Well, I did watch Squid Game The Challenge,
You did? I was curious. I couldn't watch the Netflix one. It was too gruesome
the
for me.
actual Squid Game. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was very violent. But
Yeah.
this one is like a reality TV show, like a reality show
Mhm.
competition.
Mhm.
And it's just really interesting, like super interesting to see like the psychology behind all of it, people, forming alliances and then like kind of backstabbing each other. And I think they put them in very uh difficult conditions to kind of like challenge their mental state too.
Hmm. Interesting.
Um So yeah, it was very entertaining to watch. Fascinating for sure. And then yeah, I just actually just before this finished the latest episode of Sister Wives, the tell all.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
same. I watched that today too. It's just so fascinating and sad. I don't know.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's just like really interesting to watch. I think sometimes people forget the power of their words and the things that they say and how they come across and
Mhm.
um so yeah, drama for sure.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean I think it's also just an example of what fame does. Like it
Mm,
really does more destruction than good. And I think that's part of what happened with that family. I really, really dislike Cody a lot. I don't
yeah.
like to listen to him talk at all because I feel like he takes no responsibility
Mhm.
and he's just straight up unkind. And I think he's a liar. Like he's just not a good person.
Well, and I also think he has changed a lot. They were talking a lot
Mhm.
about like he just has a lot of like anger. He
Mhm.
really has, and I don't know, he is more unfiltered now and he's just kind of like saying what he feels despite how it
Mhm.
may affect people. And I'm just so happy for Janelle and Mary and Christine, spoiler alert, for
Mhm.
bouncing and
Mhm.
leaving because I don't know, it's just so interesting to watch Christine talk about how like this is what it feels like to be loved. This is how what it feels
Mhm.
like to be, desired, and that's the hope for anybody in a relationship, that you have somebody in your life that sees you and loves
Mhm.
you. And so yeah, it is a very fascinating show that I love to watch, the dumpster fire that it is.
Mhm. For sure. Me too. It's
Yeah,
been around for a long time too. Like 18 seasons.
that's crazy.
That's a long time.
Well,
And
it's
it is wild to follow them from the beginning because they've all
evolved.
just to watch them evolve and yeah.
Well, it's so interesting. I feel like in the previous episode, we talked about this, how sometimes it's like interesting when you're talking with your friends and you start sharing, like, hey, these are some of the shows that I watched, wondering if like they're with you. And I think it was during the Golden Bachelor hour, I had mentioned something like, anybody else like loving this show? And somebody from high school, like we follow each other on Instagram and stuff, and we worked together at one point in life.
Mhm.
But it's been so fun to have somebody to chat with about, because I watch Married at First Sight, which I like absolutely love. I think it's just such an interesting premise of, marrying a total stranger that somehow, I mean, I'm sure over the seasons it's not as scientifically compatible, but more for the
Mhm.
drama. But it's just so fun to have like a random person who, we don't typically interact usually because we live very different lives, but to have somebody to kind of like chat with about a certain show and the drama and how you're feeling. And so it's just kind of fun to have that camaraderie. Mhm.
Yeah, that one recently finished up too, which I don't know. I don't know how I felt about the ending.
Oh, The Golden Bachelor?
Uh-huh.
Oh, see, again, like I think you take such a risk when you go on a show that's like a national show, because ugly stuff, like we all have ugly things in our lives somewhere deep down
Mhm.
that then becomes like exposed. And I don't know, the Gary, whatever his name was, that, you were so, charmed by, you're like, "Oh, I don't
Mhm.
know." Or the things that he told Leslie, like, you always wonder, like, "What'd you say in the fantasy suites that made her, like, totally convinced that you were gonna be the one, and then you go around and choose somebody else?" Well, granted, I figured, spoiler alert again, that Teresa would be the one because they had that emotional connection of, like, losing a spouse. Like, they both understood
Mhm.
that pain, and I get that.
Yeah, the whole thing was interesting. And I personally kind of once I was disappointed that he sent Faith home, I was kind of like, okay,
Mm,
I'm not going to be excited about either of these women because I think he should have chosen Faith. But
mm.
yeah. I also think it's just funny that like their wedding is going to be televised and they're going to Italy. Like it just seems like a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I do think that their age poses a major challenge just because you're more established in your life already. If you have
Mhm.
family and grandkids and roots somewhere, it is a
Mhm.
lot harder to like pick up and move. Whereas like a 23-year-old, like they're really not tied down to anything. So I always
Totally.
think that like it should almost be like Married at First Sight. They usually do like a city-based pool of people
Mhm.
so that you know, if they end up together, they're not having to like change things that significantly. Whereas this, it's
Totally.
like what he was in Indiana and she was in New Jersey. Like, where are they gonna live?
Mhm.
I don't know. And at the end of the day, like people are people. Whether you're 70 or 23, you're still gonna have similar tendencies, you know?
Mhm.
Oh, reality TV, how we love
I
thee
I
and
do
hate
love
thee.
it. I love it so much. It somehow feels like more of an escape than regular television. I don't know why.
Mhm,
Maybe because it's makes me feel better to watch other people's lives unravel.
mhm.
I don't know.
Well, it feels weird to be doing a podcast without Abby, but I feel like this is gonna be kind of a always an inevitable possibility that one of
Mhm.
the 3 of us might not be able to make it due to illness or traveling or busyness. So
Totally.
I guess we can kind of do what we normally do and pick a random word and see where the conversation takes us.
Sure.
Do you want me to choose a number?
Yes.
Let's see. I'm feeling 55.
Okay. Yeah, the word is adventure.
How interesting. Seeing as,
Um,
you know, you and I have lived somewhat in adventurous lives.
that's true. That's true.
Adventure. Okay. When I think of adventure, I think of this organization that I've gotten to do some pretty incredible adventures with in the last, I guess, 3 or 4 years, which is called First Descents. They're this awesome nonprofit that does outdoor adventures for young adults with cancer and with multiple sclerosis. And what I love about it is their whole premise is this idea of the healing power of adventure and being outdoors and building community. And so the whole idea is they bring in all of these young adults living with cancer or MS, and you go on these crazy adventures that maybe you've never done before or you never thought you could do post diagnosis. And it is so incredible. It's so magical is kind of the word that I always think of. I've gotten to go skiing in Crested Butte, rock climbing in Colorado, surfing in California, and the cool thing is that it's totally free.
Mhm.
Um, and they have private chefs who come and make delicious and nutritious food, and it's just really really amazing and really powerful when you get to like be in the presence of other people with a shared experience of like living with, you know, a similar disease and just having that sense of just like understanding one another, but
Mhm.
then also getting to see people like challenge themselves in ways they never thought they could. And they have this thing called they have this saying called challenge by choice, where you get to choose, like you get to choose whether you want to eat the tofu or you just want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, like to finally like have this
Mm.
choice in what you do. But it's always been such a powerful experience for me as a participant, and then I volunteer now. So when I think of adventure, that's totally what I think of. I don't know, this year I'm signing up to be a volunteer, and I told one of my friends like I'm really afraid of like water. I'm not a super strong swimmer. And one of the things that I've not yet done is kayaking, and that really
Mm.
scares me. But that's kind of like the whole point too of the whole thing. So I don't
Mhm.
know. I might be brave this year and sign up for a kayak trip, but I might not. So we'll
Mm.
see. But that's kind of what comes to mind when I think of adventure. What about
That's
you?
really cool. Um, yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's probably kind of anything outside the comfort zone, which, a big adventure that I went on that I thought was short term, turned out to be longer. But yeah, when I decided to go overseas, and actually it was kind of before that too, like I was nearing the end of college and was just feeling kind of restless. um, and was wanting to do something like a little bit rebellious and a little bit crazy. And, originally I thought something that would remedy that would be getting a tattoo. And so I remember telling mom, like, I'm thinking about maybe getting a tattoo. And, she went on to
Flip out.
just lecture about how that would ruin my life.
Uh-huh.
And instead said, well, maybe you need to like go volunteer somewhere, go somewhere overseas. Um, and so that led to me going to Ecuador one summer and working with a children's home down there that was run by our pastor at the time, his niece. And I just got to go down there for like 6 weeks, and I got to see the work that she was doing and got to volunteer there, and just really was, yeah, blown away by her courage. She was doing that as a single woman, and she was serving some of the most vulnerable kids um, in that area who were born with disabilities and who had been um, left or abandoned or whatever. And so yeah, that going by myself, I think, was a major adventure. Um, and I, went down there with a lot of questions and, trying to figure out what is going to happen. What am I doing with my life? And that was kind of the trip that made me decide to want to do my student teaching overseas. And so right after that is when I decided to pursue that. And then I ended up having lunch one day with a teacher from the school in Indonesia. And she was like, well, I don't know what your plans are, but if you want to come and student teach with me, you can.
My
And I was
gosh.
like, where is Indonesia? Like, I don't really. So yeah, I, agreed to go and do that for 4 months for a semester, and just had no idea what that was going to do to me. Just
Hmm.
changed everything. And I don't even think before that I would have considered myself an adventurous person.
Hmm.
I was very cautious, very controlled, reserved. I'm a recovering perfectionist, so I don't do anything that I don't know that I'm not going to be perfect at. And in my mind I was like, well, if I'm going to go anywhere overseas, it's going to be somewhere where they speak Spanish, because
Great.
that's what I had studied through high school and college. And
Mm-hmm.
here I am going to Southeast Asia. And I just remember thinking, like, okay, well, we'll get this, like, we'll do this, and then we'll do the actual thing that I'm supposed to do. And yeah, 4 months turned into 8 years total in
Mm-hmm.
Asia. And yeah, I mean, it turns out I love adventure. I love crazy food. I love doing things that are challenging and outside my comfort zone, and that, kind of rub up against my worldview a little bit, and anything that makes me ask hard questions. Yeah, all those things. So,
Yeah, I just think it's so cool the way that God like works. We come up with these plans in our mind of like, this is where I'm going, and God's like, yeah, no, I got something like totally different that's going to be like so
mhm,
much better for you. And I feel like you taking that leap of faith and taking on this like adventure really made you blossom into who you are, and all those experiences really shaped and formed like those deep desires and passions that you've always had, and now you're getting to do it in such a cool, impactful way of like, had it not been the experiences you had in, from the inner city of LA to Ecuador to Indonesia to Thailand, now you can like be more empathetic and understanding when it comes to like trauma informed work that you do. And I just think that's so cool. Like, or all these tools you're putting into your tool belt to
mhm.
help you do what you do now. So it's so cool.
Thanks. Yeah,
So yeah. Well,
yeah.
and I will say I got to benefit from your adventure because that year, it was a crazy year. That year, I think I was a junior in college or a sophomore in college. And that
Mhm.
year I went to I came and visited you in Indonesia, which was really, really special to kind of get to come and to come and see what you do and kind of experience some of those things and get to go to some cool I don't know, isolated islands or people.
Mhm.
But then after that, then I went to Peru with my soccer team from college. We went and did like a missions trip in Peru. And then that summer, I got to play for this soccer team in Chicago called the Chicago Eagles. And we went to Brazil. So that year, I hit up 3 new
Wow.
countries. And like, it was just so exciting to go and get to like, I know I always had dreamed of using soccer as kind of like this platform to share the gospel. Like that was really like my dream and my goal. Somewhat similar to you, I minored in Spanish and I was like, sweet, I'll go and do ministry in South America. And then I met Kevin and here I am in Southwest Illinois, subbing
Mhm.
for Spanish every once in a while. But it's just so funny. Like that was my thought I was going and it went in a different direction.
And yet you are inspiring people with your story,
Mm,
which I think it's a story that really points to and glorifies God and what he has done and how he uses your life to impact others.
mhm.
So, yeah, you could be in Brazil playing soccer and talking about Jesus, but instead, like you get to go on these adventures through that organization and like
Mm.
and you get to just inspire people by I mean, honestly, just by your presence, but then also through your story. So, it's kind of cool to think about.
Yeah. When I think even like the journey or this adventure of being a military spouse has been an interesting one too, of like so many twists and turns and closed
Mhm.
doors and you never really know what's next. And this week Kevin's actually going through this class called TAPS, which is transition, and I don't know what it stands for, but essentially it's like anybody who's planning on retiring or separating from the military, they provide all these resources and support to make sure that as you transition into the civilian world, you've got like, you're prepared.
Mhm.
And I think it's feeling a little like, "Ooh, this is really scary." Like, the military has been this safety net for almost 20 years, and now all of a sudden we're about to be let loose into the wild, and what's next, and how do you best prepare for that? And but I think in that in itself is an adventure too, to be like, "Okay, God, like, what do you have for us? Like, where are you taking us, and what are
Mhm.
jobs gonna look like?" And hopefully it'll end up in Grand Junction with y'all, but we never know. So,
Mhm.
yeah, life is an adventure, you know?
Totally.
All right, so when it comes to adventure, is there something that you would love to, like, go do or an adventure you're, like, maybe looking forward to as the next year kind of comes soon?
Yeah, I don't know. I really feel like I'm still in the midst of trying to wrap my mind around the current adventure of living in Grand Junction and figuring out how how I fit here. I think the benefit though of living close to family is that my vacation time gets to be used for more adventurous type things. So, yeah, I've got a couple single girlfriends who we are always scheming about what's coming next. So we've got a couple of different like lists that we're working on, but one of them is planning to move to New York City. So we've got like a list of what that will look like when we go and visit. We also have dreams of just packing it up and moving to Europe and just leaving everything behind and like not yeah. So we'll see. But yeah, nothing super specific or tangible at this point.
That's fair.
Yeah,
I guess it doesn't always have to pertain to, like, travel either, like, is there any,
that's
like,
true.
educational adventures that you're wanting or, like, you were talking about writing a book, that in itself is an
Mhm.
adventure, so
Mhm. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's also, thoughts of going back to school, pursuing, like an admin license or something. So I kind of wrestle with that every day of trying to figure out how I feel about this school psych gig or if there's something else that I should be doing in the education world. Because, yeah, I think like I answered in one of the early podcast episodes, like my goal is just to have an impact on the education system. Sometimes it feels like the best way to do that is in a leadership position, but that also feels a little scary. But we'll see. But it's something I'm considering. So that could be the next adventure.
Well, I will say, I think some of the best leaders and some of the best bosses or professors or things like that I've had in my life are people who have done almost every level. Like, so you
Mm,
really understand like what it's like to be on the front lines of the work that you're doing, because I think there's often this like gap in leadership of them like, here are all the rules, but they actually forget like what we do, us like little people down here like do on a daily
mhm.
basis. And so I think, I don't know, all of your experience and all of the things that you've gotten to be a part of, I think would only make you an incredible like principal one day to like really advocate not only for your students but also for your staff. And I think that that like is a characteristic that not every leader has. I wish more did, to have that like understanding and compassion, but I think that would make you an awesome principal if that is
Thanks.
the journey you take one day.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. It is funny though how adventure is like fun, but then also has this element of fear and unknown with it, you know? I suppose those are probably pretty important characteristics of an adventure because you just don't know what it entails fully. So maybe it's okay that it's a little bit scary to
Mhm.
think about.
Yeah, Kevin and I are hoping that this upcoming year we'll either go on a trip to like Alaska or Norway. He has been to Alaska a few times and he's always saying how much he loves it. I mean, he would love to move there. And I don't know if that's actually like a realistic option. And so I'm like, well, you gotta at least take me there so I can see what it looks like. So those are two things that we would like to do in the upcoming year. The tricky thing is with Alaska, like if we were to do a cruise, cruises don't even begin until May because of the winter
Mm,
season. And then Norway would be fun. There's a super cool cruise line that's like a working cargo ship. And so
hmm,
they like take you like the north part of Norway. So if I could see like the Northern Lights or something, that'd be pretty cool.
cool.
So, but you make plans, God laughs. So
Hmm.
I'll report back if these are the trips that we actually do take this upcoming year.
Yeah,
So yeah.
nice. Yeah, adventure is a fun word. I'm trying to think like if we were adventurous when we were growing up.
Oh, I feel like growing up, mom and dad really did instill a love of adventure in a way. Like we didn't grow up playing video games. We grew up being locked out of the house and be like, go play,
Oh
go,
god.
have fun. We went
Mhm,
camping and I just feel like they really instilled a love of like the outdoors in us, which I think allowed
mhm,
us to be creative and see places because not everybody,
mhm.
does that. I mean, we never went to
Totally.
the beach. It was always to the mountains, which probably is why I'm such a mountain girl.
Yeah, I mean, I think in true like Griswold fashion, everything was an adventure with us, you know, whether we wanted it to be or not. It always had an element of the unknown and, the occasional disaster or whatever. But
Mhm.
yeah, no, I think there was definitely a spirit of gratitude and let's just see what happens, kind of in the midst of a pretty tight itinerary as well. But no, I think it did leave a lot of room for fun and things like that.
Yeah, I just remember, yeah, we grew up going to Colorado all the time camping. Now, this one time we did take a trip to Disney, which then ended in somewhat of disaster, us getting escorted out of the park, mostly because, everything was just going wrong. And mom was like, we're done. I had like our money back. And so we always joke that we have like Mickey Mouse ears, like in the back, like, you are not welcome here.
Right.
But
Blacklisted or whatever.
yeah. So we tried to do like a typical like family vacation to Disney, and I mean, if anything, we have really great stories, even if things ended in disaster or chaotic, like there's always stories we can look back and laugh at. So,
For sure. Yeah, we need a podcast for that story alone,
mhm.
especially because I'd love to hear all three
Everyone's
of our
perspective.
perspective. Yeah, I think that would be good. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Stay tuned for the Disneyland episode because that'll be a good one. No, I think our Colorado trips were also really fun. I feel like one of the most memorable moments was when we tried to hike that 14er
Oh
and
my
we were like
gosh,
a
that was
1,000
crazy.
feet from the top
Almost
and
summited.
a storm rolled in and then we got to sled down the mountain on our windbreakers against the rules so that we didn't get caught in the storm.
It was either that one or the one, I don't know if you remember, we had to literally crawl on our hands and knees over this like raging river
Oh,
on a
yeah.
log to get to some lake or something. I'm sure mom would be able to and dad would be able to tell us like what exact hike that was, but that was
Hmm.
very scary. I mean, they were really brave in taking like three
I
rambunctious
know.
girls
Children,
on some of
like
these crazy
young
hikes.
children. Totally.
But I think it like toughened us up. You know, like dad grew up with all brothers, and so I'm sure it was a little like, what do I do with these girls? But we weren't super girly girls anyways, and I love that about us, that we're like, we can get all dolled up and pretty, but then we can also like camp and be gross, and eat
Hmm.
hamburger helper and whatever, you know?
Hmm.
So we're
Hmm.
really well rounded.
Go us.
Go us. Yeah. For a good time. Well, I look forward to like the next adventure that you, Abby, and I will take, whatever that may be,
Oh,
because we have good adventures, like, hey, if you didn't tune into our New York episode, go check it out because that was pretty epic. That was an
that
adventure.
was. It really was.
So
Yeah.
thanks for joining me, Mal, and chatting about adventure. I look forward to seeing what adventures come in this upcoming year for all of us. And
Yeah.
yeah. Well, thanks, friends, for joining us for A Word with the Girls, a podcast where one word sparks conversation. And we believe in the power of conversation and stories. So now it's your turn. Take our word adventure to your people and see where this conversation takes you. And let us know how it goes in the comments. Let us know what adventures you've been on or what you're looking forward to in 2024. We'd love to hear from you here on Instagram, Spotify, or YouTube. So, Mal, I guess we'll chat later, and Abby will be with us next time, but love ya.
That's good. Love you more.
Bye.